The path to get what you want always has difficulties. What's up, guys? It is Mighty Q here on Mighty Q's Locker, a podcast where who really knows what we're going to talk about in the day. But today, what I'm going to talk about is a wrestling story. So, for all you wrestlers out there, this is a wrestling related story. But for me and my wrestling career, and this is something that I did to get a lot better at wrestling. When I first started wrestling, all I remember was being at this club called the Harvey Twisters, and that was when I was in first grade, and I was in first grade, but I remember getting pulled up and practicing with like older kids, and they had a hot box room, and I remember practicing in the hot box with the rest of like the older kids that were like cutting weight and like they were already doing all that stuff already. But I got a chance to wrestle up against older kids and practice and drill and learn technique from older kids. I mean, I remember I was learning how to leg ride. I do remember one day in there where I was learning a crossbody ride, and I was in first grade. And it's not something you typically teach to someone who's in first grade, nor do you have a first grader in a hot box going through an entire wrestling practice with kids that are 3, 4, 5 years older than he is. And so I just, right from the jump, the thing that was clear that made me a lot better of a wrestler was I put myself in a bunch of really, really tough situations where I put myself around people that were better wrestlers than I was, and I had to come up to their level. And I knew that if I was at their level, that I would be higher than anyone who was at my level. I always thought if I could wrestle older kids, if I can wrestle above my age, if I can wrestle the people that have more strength, have more experience, have more knowledge of the sport just based on years in time, then there's no reason I can't beat people that are my own age. The confidence that you can get from hitting a double leg in a practice where you scrap one out and you're able to finish it and you get the takedown on someone who's 4 years older than you, it completely shifts your mind. It completely changes the way that you look at any shot, because someone who is that much older than you has 4 more years experience of just regular general life, but 4 more years of strength, 4 more years of training, whatever you want to put it to. It's like they are better, period. And yes, there is times where it's like, hey, yes, there are people that are behind the curve, but for the most part, in a general sense, those people that are older are much better, especially at the early ages. But that's what changes the approach when I then wrestled people that were my own age. There was no reason I couldn't get a takedown. I was like, why can I not shoot on these guys? I literally am able to get takedowns on whoever. And so is a way better wrestler than this person is, and so like I came into it with that. And one of my old coaches used to say iron sharpens iron all the time. And it's true. Everyone talks about, the people that you hang around with, if you hang around 4 people and they're all in the same, you're going to become the 5th of whatever those 4 are. And for me, I definitely took that approach with sports. I've always put myself in situations that challenged me to be better. I had to, in a sense, level up, and I just had to go and learn. Now, it's a very trial by fire, but you know what? Trial by fire is a very, very rapid way to learn, and it's normally the best way that you learn. You can go read a book on wrestling. You can go read a book on football. You can go read a book on weightlifting. But until you actually step on a mat, step on the field, step in the gym, you know nothing. You could read all the books that you want, but until you actually go do it, you know absolutely nothing. You can watch the videos, you can do a lot of planning, but until you actually go and do it, you have zero knowledge. None. And this is a counterpoint that I'm going to talk about briefly, and then I'll get back. The people who've never done something, or people have never done something that you have done and they haven't done, don't listen to their fucking opinion. They know nothing about what you did to get and what you do. Until someone has at least done the same thing, I don't want to hear their opinion on that said thing. Now, they're more than welcome to have an opinion. I'm just not going to listen to it. It's going to go in one ear and right out the other. I could care less. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. But I don't care. It goes a lot for right now, and what goes on in the media, and especially a sports media in a sense, is there's a lot of people that talk about sports that know nothing about sports. And it's becoming more and more and more prevalent. And it's something that I normally don't. I try to avoid the tangents on most of the other podcasts. I've done a pretty good job to avoid the tangents, but today it felt very like a very good time to do one. Sports in general, there's a certain element. If you've never put on a helmet, buckled a chin strap, and gone out there and played football, there is a certain element of the game that you will never understand. You will never understand what it's like to be inside the lines, and that is a opinion, and that is a part of the game that you should not ever talk about. You cannot talk about someone, what they feel out on the field. You cannot talk about any of the senses and because it is completely different than anything you've ever experienced in your life unless you've done it. And the same goes for any sport. And if you've never done it, you will never understand what it takes to step out there and do it. Whether it be football, wrestling, baseball, track, soccer, golf, swimming, I don't care. There is a different element when you are competing in that sport than anything else. And you know it when you feel it, when you're actually a part of the game. Being a fan in the stands, you feel like a fan in the stands. Being a coach on the sideline, you feel the same antics and drama being a coach and like a coach. But to most of those coaches, you understand because you were in that same position. So you can coach it and you can help and you can advise and go in ways because you felt it yourself. But if you've never been inside the lines or in that competition or played that sport, and you're going to try to give an opinion on what needs to be done, what should be better, or what you really think, I will never listen to that. You are more than welcome to spew your opinion, but I will never take it into consideration. So, back to the topic. Once I moved down to Texas and I was wrestling down there, for me, I then kept it up with like, hey, like I'm going to start doing extra stuff. And I ended up practicing with the high schoolers basically the time I was in like 5th or 6th grade. And so for like 3 or 4 years before I even got to high school, I was practicing with high schoolers. And for the first couple years, like it was like I was practicing with the girls varsity and the boys JV team. And then by the time I was there in the last 2 years, I remember being there, it was like, yep, I was wrestling the 106 and, well, it was 103 at the time. So I was wrestling the 103 pounder and the 112 pounder, and I didn't really wrestle the 120 very much because I was only like 80 pounds at the time. But I did wrestle up to, be with them, to actually wrestle with them, and then still was wrestling the varsity girls team. And I mean, Emily for years kicked my ass. But I mean, I'm pretty sure she was a state champ. If she wasn't a state champ, she was multiple time state placer, but I'm almost positive she was a state champ. And there was a handful. I mean, I just remember Emily because we actually still to this, Facebook and Instagram and everything else. But that's the good nature. Her and her husband, have a couple kids now, and they're still in the wrestling community. So I've also seen them at tournaments and whatnot, and love them, love their family. And she was a huge help to me growing up. So very appreciative. A lot of girls on that team absolutely kicked my ass. And it was kind of supposed to happen. I mean, I was in like 6th grade. So figured. But again, it went right back to that same confidence factor of when I was wrestling the guys that were on JV. Still, to a degree, most guys that were on JV are still better than Division III age wrestlers. Like there's that strength factor. There's the age factor. There were so many things that went into it. And so many people are scared to put themselves in a really, really tough situation because they feel like they're stuck and they're having to deal with that. Versus if you're put in a tough situation, all that's going to happen is you're going to gradually adapt to where that tough situation is no longer very tough. It can become easy if you put in enough work, but even if it becomes something that you just kind of regularly then do, that's then a very tough thing that you start doing regularly. So the next tough thing that you meet or you come head to head with, it's not as tough. And not only is it not as tough, you're going to be a lot more equipped to just start attacking it, to start hitting it every single day, to do all the things that you know you can do. You understand you're going to get your ass kicked a lot, and you just kind of keep showing up. And, if you keep showing up and you keep doing the things that you need to do, and then the next thing you know, that tough situation ends up becoming a little bit easier and a little bit easier and a little bit easier. And then boom. Now you're in a completely different situation in the world. So where something absolutely sucks at the time and it feels like it's pain and just a lot of sorrow of what's going through, that can all completely change the minute you become adapted to it. So for me, when I first started going to those high school practices, like it kind of sucked. Like I didn't score much. Like let alone, hey, I'm like winning in live goes. How about not scoring? Like that starts to kind of, especially as a, 5th and 6th grader, like I was semi-mentally mature when it came to wrestling and didn't really care very much, knew it was practice, whatever, used to try shit. But man, like I used to think that I was terrible because I just could never score. And it was like for a year, it felt like I went to practice and I was absolutely getting ragdolled. And I just had nothing. And then one day, like I literally showed up and it's just like everything clicked. Like I went from not scoring to being able to hit all of my moves. And it's because it took that one little extra step of it was like, oh, you're good now. Like you've put in enough time. You kind of know what's going on. You kind of understand where you can see the strengths and weaknesses and how to effectively wrestle now. And that's exactly what happened. I put in a bunch of work and absolutely sucked. And then one day, it went from being absolutely terrible to turned into being an absolute blast, because it went from I'm getting ragdolled and my face, just absolutely beaten into the mat every day versus, oh, hey, I'm pretty competitive. Oh, not only am I competitive, I'm winning now, and I'm hitting different moves, and I'm hitting fun moves, and I'm making stuff work. And I don't know really what it was that ever changed. Just the fact that it went from something that was pain to no longer pain. It changed. It was difficult. I went through a really tough situation. And then when I meet the next situation head on, I tell you what, it was a lot easier. And that was pretty much my freshman year of high school. And I mean, that was an interesting year, and was able to, I was 500 at basically the middle break of the year. And I want to say I finished, I want to say like 35 and 15. 30. I know I got over 30 wins. I want to say it was like 33 to 36 wins and somewhere between 12 and like 20 losses, which is why I think it was like 16 or 17, somewhere in there. But I beat, I think, 6 seniors that year, my freshman year. And one of which on a duel, one in a duel where we got beat 63-6. So if that tells you how good my team was. And I remember Coach yelling at us in the locker room afterwards. And I was kind of sitting there thinking, I'm like, Coach, what are you yelling at them for? Like, Matt and I both won our match. Matt was our 220, and he was a senior my freshman year. And, Matt was our guy. Matt was the only person that made it out of districts in the school's history to this point. And so, he made it to regionals last year, and then he lost. And then there's me that comes in as the freshman with all the years of wrestling experience, and this is the first time the team has ever had someone with actual experience like that, because new school. And so I was kind of thinking about it, and I'm like, Coach, I squeaked out a win in my match. I beat a dude who was a senior in the third period because I got a takedown. I feel great. Matt won a close match against a guy who's also tough in division or district. And I'm like, after that, you're looking at a bunch of guys who I was like, he's wrestled 1 year. He's wrestled for 2 months. He's wrestled for 6 months. He was on the team last year, but never saw, varsity time. Oh, this is his first time here. And then I was then I thought about it and I was like, wait. We also had 4 forfeits, so I was like, just based off of forfeits, we were down 24-0 before the first match even happened because of where the weight class started. And I was just thinking about it when he's yelling, I'm like, man, we were really down 24-0 before I even stepped on the mat. And then I went out there, I got us 3 points, and then Matt closed us off at 220 with his 3 points, and we're sitting there damn, we really just got beat 6-63 at home. Now coach is yelling at us in the locker room. Our 2 best wrestlers won in 2 great matches because we were just well, I guess we got to show up. I guess we have to do what we have to do. We were down 24-0. I guess I probably could, I tried to fight for the 6. I would have loved to get us 6 points, but I got us the win. We kept us from the shutout. And there was, a couple times that year. There was another senior from our rival school. I beat him in a duel at home as well, and that was huge. That was huge for me. That was huge for me that night. That was a senior night. I was one of few to win that night too. And that was again a guy who was a senior and ended up, placing at state that year, and that felt really good for me to get that win. But all summed up to I wrestled great my freshman year and even in college, based on the fact that I spent my entire wrestling career wrestling up against people who were older than me and better than me. And when I wrestled freestyle and Greco, I did the same thing. When I was a novice, I used to wrestle schoolboy. I would wrestle both of them, but then I would wrestle both schoolboy and cadet, and then I was wrestling both cadet and junior. So I was in 4 tournaments because freestyle and Greco both had their separate brackets, but I was in 4 brackets for essentially every freestyle and Greco tournament I wrestled, with the exception of my first season. I wrestled so many matches in freestyle and Greco. I can remember going back and forth. There was one Matt who was like, "Hey Quinn, you're up over here." And I was like, "Cool." And there was another Matt who then was like, "Hey, by the way, when you're done over there, like, come over and see us because you're up again." And I would then wrestle 1, wrestle 2, officiate a couple matches. Then someone's like, "Hey, you're up over here." I'd go ref, then go to... Either way, sorry, tangent. But I wrestled a lot of matches. I put in a lot of time. So not only did I just have the years that I actually wrestled, I was like doubling and tripling up the amount of stuff that I was putting in. I was going to multiple practices. So I was going to the high school practices before my practice, and then I would normally help the younger kids. So I would go to a high school practice, I'd help the younger kids at their practice, and then I would have my practice after that for the club team that was at night. So I was there for 6 hours at night, 4 days a week, or 3 days a week, and then I was there for 3 hours on the other day. I put in a lot of hours, but it was a lot of hours with a lot of really, 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 really good wrestlers who were all older than me. So all I was trying to do was get to their level of where they were at right then, because I knew if I took that level of wrestling and I can compete at a higher level and I go, "Hey, I'm going to bring that and compete down here," I knew that I was going to win a bunch of matches. I used to step out on the mat with so much confidence because of all the years that I got my ass kicked by the girls varsity at Centennial and the JV team at Centennial and the varsity team at Centennial. All of them. Years. 3 years. Kicked my ass in practice. And all because of that, I became a 10 times better wrestler than what I was if I wouldn't have gone to those practices. Iron sharpens iron. You rise to the level of your competition. Because if you don't, all that's going to happen is you're just going to keep getting your face kicked in. And you know what? That sucks. So when that happens, you just turn around and leave. So if you don't want to leave, you adapt and get better. And like a rising tide, it raises all the ships. So if you patch up the boat, congratulations. You're going to rise to a different level. And that's exactly what I did. And that's exactly what I would encourage you guys to do, is put in the extra work, put in the extra time, Find those guys that are really good and that you know that are at a level that is more than you, and go with them and drill with them and learn from them, because they are your cheat code. They are your cheat code to getting better quickly. Everyone talks about, oh, I just want to get better right now. Oh, how can I get better with a shot? Go get your ass kicked by someone who is 2 times better than you are, and figure out how much better you can be as a wrestler. All right, guys, that is going to do it for me today. I know I stayed mostly on topic, and I got a little tangent-y in there today, and I actually just went ahead and rode with them. So that's going to do it for me. I know there was no episode yesterday. I just kind of felt like there wasn't really much for me to speak about in a passionate manner to really get you guys around. I was just all over the place doing a million things yesterday. I never really had time to sit down and think about it. But this was something that popped into my head, and I definitely started thinking about it and really kind of dove in and saw how in-depth this really was, and how much has really helped out my career. So I hope that you guys are able to get a lot of use and a lot of benefit out of this. And if you were, I just hope that you can share it with a friend. And that's the only thing that I can ask that you do, is just share it with a friend, and hopefully you guys can keep getting better. So, all right, guys, I'll talk to you later. We'll see you. Mighty Q is out.